Right now on Morning News Now, President Trump in Abu Dhabi for the final stop of his historic Middle East tour.
This has been an amazing trip. We've raised trillions of dollars of investment for our country. And we're dealing with really good people that have been abandoned in a way by our country.
Meanwhile, in Washington, arguments in the fight to block the president's plan to end birthright citizenship being heard by the Supreme Court. We have team coverage for you. Breaking this morning, gridlock in the Garden State with New Jersey Transit employees now on strike and hundreds of thousands of daily commuters stuck. How a wage dispute brought one of the nation's busiest transit systems to a standstill. Also this morning, some parts of the U.S. bracing for another round of springtime storms, while other parts face unseasonable highs and fire danger. We are tracking it all, plus what you can expect for your weekend. And running for hope, we're marking Mental Health Awareness Month with a look at the challenges facing younger generations and how one organization close to my heart is working to get them the help they need. It's a really cool event. Oh, that was probably a picture of me there last year that I've been involved for a few years. But you'll want to hear from this teenager. You'll want to hear from the director of the organization. It's awesome.
Excited about that. Good to be with you on a Friday. Here. Who else would I rather be with but my friend Savannah? I'm Sam Brown, in for Joe. Looking up, I'm in for Joe.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for ending your week with us. Well, President Trump is on his way back to Washington this morning after a 4-day tour of the Middle East. Now, prior to departing the UAE, he spent the day meeting with Abu Dhabi's president and business leaders at the city's presidential palace. It's the third and final leg of the trip. It follows jam-packed stops in Qatar and Saudi Arabia.
So the president's time in the Persian Gulf was filled with lavish welcomes, promises of big business deals, and attempts at international diplomacy. On the trip, the administration pressing Iran, Savannah, on a nuclear deal, announcing plans to lift sanctions on Syria and even weighing in on talks currently underway right now in Turkey to end Russia's war in Ukraine. NBC News correspondent Alice Barr joining us now from Washington with the very latest. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Sam and Savannah. Yeah, President Trump is now headed home on Air Force One, but not without making some final headlines about trade deals and a week that's been heavily focused on doing business with the United States. President Trump headed home from his Middle East trip after a final cultural tour and business roundtable in the United Arab Emirates, where he announced that with too many countries wanting to make a trade deal at once, his administration will start sending out letters.
Telling people what they'll be paying to do business in the United States. I guess you could say they could appeal it, but for the most part, I think we're going to be very fair.
That after the UAE president announced plans to invest $1.4 trillion over 10 years in U.S. industry, including energy and AI.
We will work very hard to deserve it.
It caps a week of deals in 3 wealthy Gulf states alongside diplomacy, pushing Iran to negotiate to abandon its nuclear program.
They're not going to make, I call it, in a friendly way, nuclear dust.
All while weighing in on talks underway to end Russia's war on Ukraine.
Nothing's going to happen until Putin and I get together.
All right, so Alice, what are some of the broader takeaways here from this trip concerning President Trump's foreign policy plans?
Yeah, I think we did learn a lot. And a comment I'm taking away is President Trump saying that America has no permanent enemies in talking about negotiating with Iran. He also said that past administrations had been too apt to intervene in the Middle East. He agreed to lift sanctions on Syria, long in place, while pressing its president to normalize relations with Israel. But on the flip side of that, he also was quick to say that on Iran, if they don't do this the nice way through negotiations, that there is a violent step, he said, to get them to agree to give up their nuclear weapon ambitions. He said he did not want to have to go to that step.
All right, Alice, thank you very much for kicking us off this morning. Well, it's not a not-so-happy Friday for thousands of commuters here in the New York City area. They're facing a major travel disruption. It's after members of the Railroad Engineers Union for New Jersey Transit went on strike overnight. This is the first walkout in more than 40 years. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen said its members were walking off the job after contract talks over wages collapsed late last night. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa has the latest.
Hey there. Well, the governor of New Jersey is urging people who rely on these trains to work from home if they can. That's just how big of a disruption is anticipated from this strike, the first statewide strike in more than 40 years here, with the train engineers belonging to New Jersey Transit walking off the job. You can see some of them starting to gather in the picket lines behind me, and the impacts are expected to be far-reaching. Some 350,000 people across the state rely on New Jersey Transit train lines to get to places like New York City, Philadelphia, to traverse the Garden State. But it's not just the daily commuters who will be scrambling to find other options. People also use these trains to get to, say, the airport or to major concert venues. So a lot of these people are now going to be hitting the road, getting on buses, getting behind the wheel, already adding to the already congested area. Now, the sticking point has been over wages. New Jersey Transit train engineers say they want competitive salaries, but the state and New Jersey Transit says that they need to do some cost-cutting measures, urging the engineers to return to the negotiating table. Negotiations are expected to resume on Sunday morning. Back to you.
Thanks, Emily.
We'll see how long this takes. Thanks, Emily. And other travel news, because the headaches don't just stop there this morning. It's disruptive. We're learning of yet another air traffic control outage, this time in Denver, which is a critical airport hub for both United and Southwest Airlines. This happened at Denver Center on Monday. That center controls high-altitude flights in and around Denver International. It is the nation's third busiest airport. The FAA says the controllers lost several radio channels that allow them to communicate with pilots. That outage lasted for 90 seconds, and controllers had to switch to a backup frequency. Now, notably, the controllers never lost their radar contact, and planes did remain separated. Of course, this all follows on the heels of the recent news at Newark with outages there that have contributed to hours-long delays.
Well, the former girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs, Cassie Ventura, will take the stand again today to face her second day of cross-examination in Sean Diddy Combs' federal sex trafficking trial. It comes after Combs' defense team questioned her for hours yesterday, calling into question her actions during their relationship. NBC News entertainment correspondent Chloe Malas has the latest from the courthouse, and some of this may be disturbing.
Cassie Ventura back on the witness stand, this time facing cross-examination from Sean Combs' lawyers. His defense team fighting back against testimony that Ventura was forced to participate in drug-fueled sexual encounters known as freak-offs. Combs' team submitting often explicit text messages and emails sent between the former couple into evidence. In one, Ventura writing to Combs in 2009 after they had been dating for 2 years, "I'm always ready to freak off." In another that same year, she writes, "When we used to freak off when we were so in love, there were no questions asked. It felt right." When asked by Combs' lawyer about a text from 2017 where she said she loved freak-offs, Ventura said they were just words at that point.
There's a chance that one or more of the jurors might hear this evidence that she came back time and time again to Combs, that she participated in these freak-offs. And some of the jurors may conclude that this was more of a choice than it was coercion.
The defense team also asking about the couple's infidelity on both sides, seeming to paint the relationship as deeply troubled but consensual. Cassie said Combs kicked her in the back after finding out she cheated on him with rapper Kid Cudi, also admitting that she was jealous of a relationship Combs was having with another woman. She also spoke about the couple's extensive drug use and revealed Combs overdosed on painkillers in 2012. She said drug dependence influenced some of the rapper's mood swings and also spoke again about her own drug addiction. Ventura's cross-examination comes after 2 days of emotional testimony in which she said Combs subjected her to years of physical and psychological abuse. Testifying that Combs blackmailed her with recordings from sexual encounters to silence her and keep her in the relationship. Combs has pleaded not guilty and says the freak-offs were consensual.
So one thing that I just want to point out is that we know that Cassie is pregnant with her third child, but she might give birth imminently, according to prosecutors, and they want her off the stand before the weekend. And this is something that Combs' legal team has been trying to fight against. They want their opportunity to cross-examine her, and they don't want to be rushed. Back to you.
All right, Chloe, thank you so much. Well, now we are joined by NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. You, of course, just saw him in that piece. He's everywhere for us all the time. He's here in studio this morning. Okay, so let's talk through this cross-examination. First, I thought it was also sort of notable that the judge was like, this will wrap up by Friday, as Chloe just mentioned there, for Cassie's sake, given that she could go into labor soon. But we saw them pull up her text messages. She had to read some of them. They were read to her. What was successful, do you think, from the defense? And we also talked about how they're going to have to toe this line of, like, being, somewhat respectful, maybe kind of gentle given the nature of this, but also try to make their case. Do you think they did that?
Yeah, first, you mentioned the timing of the witness examination. Now, the judge has considerable discretion to control the length of cross-examination. But I have to tell you, and I am a defense attorney, but I did side with the defense on this issue, that it's the prosecution that chose to bring this case. It's their witness. They chose to call a witness who is 8 months pregnant. And if she suddenly goes into labor, that's the equivalent of as if she had taken the Fifth Amendment. In other words, it would deny the defense the opportunity to cross-examine and confront and present a defense. Those are all constitutional rights that could be violated. Now, I understand the judge does have discretion in this area, but I think hurrying them along is something that defense attorneys, it's the bane of our existence. Now, you ask about cross-examination. The challenge for the defense here is how do you do it delicately and gently, but also in a firm way, because they have a duty, defense attorneys, to explore her memory, her motive, and probably the most important, her decisions. And I know this may be unpopular, and I know that many people recognize that victims of domestic violence cannot get away from their abuser. But the reality is there may be one or more of those jurors that is saying to themselves, I don't know, this freak-off lifestyle, I don't get it. And I see that she went back to him on numerous occasions. Now, again, that could be a victim under the Svengali hold of Diddy Combs, or it could be someone who is making deliberate, independent choices to return to this situation.
With that framework, Savannah mentioned the text messages, right? And so that was brought up yesterday, the text messages that the defense was saying, look, Cassie is acknowledging participation, looking forward, in her own words, to these events. How pivotal could that be? Because, Danny, I know you also mentioned the fact that it's one thing to look at a transcript, and it's another the inflection and the body language when she's on the stand. What's your takeaway there? Exactly
right. And because we don't get cameras in federal court, we're left with sort of the reporting on the transcript. But I was there yesterday, and you could hear her response. And you know what's interesting? Everybody brings their own life experiences when we observe people. And we all think we have this sort of lie detection hardware in our brains. And to some degree, we do through evolution. But it's not infallible. And so the way she responded, I wouldn't say she responded in a bad way, but she's quiet. She pauses a little between questions. You could see that either as she's thoughtful about her answers, or you might see, I could imagine a juror saying, she seems a little too flat. I'm not so sure I find her credible. My point is this. Jurors are charged with determining credibility. Credibility is at the core of every witness's testimony. And the way by which we do that is not very scientific. It's instinct, and human instinct has a lot of problems with it.
Danny, the big question here, as we discussed yesterday, is you may hear a lot of these details and think, okay, he's a bad guy. Even by the defense's own admission, domestic violence was present. Those are not the same as racketeering. Those are not the same as what he's being charged with, and therefore, ultimately, will he be found guilty on? Do you think, from what you've heard so far, from a star witness, there's a lot to come, but from someone who the prosecution is resting a lot on, that they are getting nearer to actually proving what he is charged with?
Oh, sure. I mean, look, the federal government has never shied from overkill. They are laying on all of the evidence. And by the way, Cassie, in my view, isn't even the most important witness for the government in terms of elements. They will bring on other witnesses. And by the way, the prosecution doesn't put all their eggs in the basket of Cassie Ventura. We know that because they've superseded the indictment and they have more victims coming in to testify. So they're going to put on their case to prove all of the elements of their crimes. And you correctly pointed out, this is not a domestic violence case. This is not a rape case. Those crimes are sort of sub-elements of the greater federal crimes. So they do have to be proven as to some of the elements. But that is one of the defense's central themes, which is you may hate my client. You may think he's a horrible person. You may think he's guilty of assault, rape, and some of these other misdeeds. However, that is not what he's charged with here today. And that is probably their best path.
Diddy, by the way, was offered a plea deal and rejected it. What's the mandatory minimum, just to remind our viewers that he could be looking at if he's convicted?
The only crime with a mandatory minimum in this case is the trafficking. It has a mandatory minimum of 15 years. That means the judge has zero discretion. When you talk about statutory maximums, though, with federal cases, the only number we could know now is by adding them all up end to end to end, because in theory, he could get consecutive sentences if he's convicted. And that number is usually approaching infinity or life in prison. And that's probably what he's looking at. In reality, the sentencing guidelines might be lower, but really they might not, because these are all pretty serious crimes. The only knowable number now really is the maximum, but also the statutory minimum. And that is a really important number for Diddy to be thinking about.
Danny Savalos, we appreciate you as always. Thank you so much.
Double Danny. Always a good day. Thank you, sir. Well, it was also a contentious day at the Supreme Court yesterday, with the justices hearing arguments over the future of birthright citizenship in America and whether federal judges can put a stop to actions or issue a so-called national injunction in response to an executive order from the president. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett explains.
It's a case with potentially enormous ramifications for the powers of the presidency, impacting everything from immigration to federal funding to even diversity in schools.
The high-stakes clash between the White House and the federal courts, reaching the Supreme Court.
Presidents want to get things done.
The Trump administration hoping to convince the justices that a single federal judge in a single state has no authority to block an executive order for the entire country. President Trump facing nearly 40 so-called nationwide injunctions on a host of issues so far in his second term, particularly on immigration, including lower courts blocking President Trump's executive order, stripping birthright citizenship for children born in the U.S. to undocumented immigrants. The court's conservative majority seeming open to the administration's arguments on the dangers of judicial overreach.
There are 680 district court judges, and they are dedicated and they are scholarly, and I'm not impugning their motives in any way, but sometimes they're wrong.
But some liberal members of the court grilling the administration on what happens if judges cannot block an executive order they believe is illegal on a nationwide basis.
Let's just assume you're dead wrong. Does every single person that is affected by this EO have to bring their own suit?
Democratic state officials arguing a patchwork of citizenship would emerge if the administration wins here, with rights varying from state to state. Still, there has been bipartisan criticism of judges abusing nationwide injunctions, incentivizing so-called judge shopping for sympathetic courts.
We are being hit hard by judges that I think they're trying to take away the power of the presidency.
As for when we expect to see a decision from the high court here, they typically issue the biggest rulings of the term the last week of June or first week of July. Back to you.
We're keeping track of that, Laura. Thanks so much.
Well, it has been a week of rough weather for much of the United States, and it continues today as more than 70 million people remain under the threat of severe storms. At least 9 suspected tornadoes, like this one that you see on your screen right now, this was in western Wisconsin, were spotted across the Midwest yesterday. Luckily, no serious injuries were reported.
Scary, Savannah, nonetheless. And in Chicago, the strong storms there had fans at Beyonce's Cowboy Carter concert sheltering in place, as you're looking at some of that video, as Soldier Field was hit with strong winds and rain just as the Queen Bee was set to take the stage. Do not mess with the beehive if there's a takeaway here. Luckily, the skies eventually cleared and the show went on.
Look at the rain on those stairs. My goodness. All right, well, let's get a check on what to expect this weekend after a week of severe storms with your Morning News Now weather.
Meteorologist Angie Lastman joining us now. Is there some good news in the forecast
I know,
here? Or more
for a
of this?
weekend.
Guys, there's always good news somewhere in the country when it comes to the weather. I will deliver that at the end, because first we've got to deal with all the bad news I have this morning, which is thunderstorm watches that are in effect across parts of the Tennessee Valley. You can see this line of thunderstorms has really ramped up. Plenty of lightning associated with that. And we do have some thunderstorm warnings embedded in there as well. We started off the morning with some tornado watches across parts of the Great Lakes. Those have since expired, but we're really essentially going to see things ramp up again, especially as we get into the afternoon hours. And again, from the Ohio Valley to the Tennessee Valley, we'll still see the rain and the wind for the upper Midwest. That's not going anywhere thanks to this storm system that's just kind of hanging around. But specifically Evansville and Nashville, that's where we have that moderate risk. So the greatest chance for us to see some of those stronger tornadoes, the hail and the wind. But this is pretty expansive today. More than 70 million people included in the potential for severe weather. It goes from Washington, D.C. all the way to Dallas. And specifically, again, we are concerned concerned about those larger tornadoes across parts of the Tennessee Valley, St. Louis to Nashville, and out toward Lexington, all included in that threat. By tomorrow, that area looks a lot better. So there's some good news for folks there, but we start to see things ramping up in other spots. It's not going to be quite as expansive, and we'll still have the potential to see some of these stronger storms, specifically parts of the southern plains, Dallas and Little Rock included in that, and then stretching from the northeast to the mid-Atlantic, again, some hail, maybe some damaging winds, and a couple of tornadoes. But we're most concerned about the hail risk across parts of the southern plains for tomorrow. By Sunday, more of those storms are going to erupt across, you guessed it, the plains. That's where we'll see the most active kind of wrap up to our weekend. That severe threat will last from Nebraska to Texas, Wichita, right in the bullseye of that. Big picture look, though, for our temperatures. Boy, it feels like summer. I don't know who turned up the heat, but they're really feeling it across Texas specifically. 98 degrees in San Antonio today. We could see some record-breaking temperatures once again across the southern tier of this region. 97 in Jacksonville, and even as far north as Detroit, temperatures running 15 degrees above normal. So it's mid-80s today for your high there. We keep the East Coast in on this action as we get into tomorrow, too. Mid-80s for Washington, D.C., triple digits for San Antonio, 90s for Dallas, near 90 for Nashville. As we head into the end of our weekend and into early next week, guys, it'll stay warm, still shorts and T-shirt kind of forecast. So there is your good news, because you see what I did? I didn't tell you needed a jacket. Yeah.
I also feel like we've been fighting this like rainy pattern. It has not been warm. It has not felt like spring.
No, but don't worry. 90s in Texas. You can go there.
There we go.
When you
have to like, go back to the Lone Star State. Florida, we have a Florida
the good news. Yes. I don't know how good it is. That looks pretty good, though, actually.
This is the art of being a meteorologist.
Very delicately done.
Yeah.
Congrats to you.
You can find her on Instagram for all your complaints. Thanks, Andy.
Much more to come here on Morning News Now. A little bit later this hour, one neighborhood Savannah taking on the world's richest man. We're going to take you to Tennessee, where a company owned by Elon Musk is being accused of harming the health of an entire community.
Up first, though, after the break, a horrific killing of a beauty influencer streamed live on TikTok. Now, investigators say her gender may have been a motive. What we know is next. Stay with us.
And we are back now with an NBC News exclusive. As the Trump administration cracks down on illegal immigration, human traffickers appear to be changing their playbook, if you will, specifically when it comes to smuggling Chinese nationals into the U.S. Never-before-seen footage shared with NBC News takes us inside multiple smuggling operations that are raising national security concerns and rattling residents in one of America's most expensive zip codes. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch has all the details.
This is Coral Gables, Florida, a city just outside Miami dotted with multi-million-dollar homes and luxury yachts. It's home to one of America's most exclusive zip codes. And now it's one of the latest targets for human smugglers. Police say these are Chinese nationals being smuggled into the U.S. through Coral Gables.
Send me a supervisor.
This police body camera footage shared exclusively with NBC News shows two separate January incidents.
Hey, we got the same thing going on.
Both times, law enforcement stopped the alleged smugglers and detained the migrants.
To the ground.
But this surveillance footage from almost a month earlier shows close to 20 people getting into this U-Haul, which police confirm was never caught.
It's literally a straight shot.
Coral Gables police chief Edward Hudak says smuggling is not new here.
We just dusted off our playbook from the 80s and 90s when the smugglers were bringing in narcotics. But this is a human cargo now.
So why Coral Gables?
The same things making this such an attractive place to live also make it pretty appealing for human smuggling. Take a look around me. Lots of trees, lots of privacy, and not a lot of people.
The open water leads right into this channel, and if you make it undetected onto land, there's a main road allowing migrants to vanish into the country.
Please, everybody take a seat. Everybody sit down.
Chief Hudak says it was actually residents who tipped police off to the suspicious activity, despite his department working with agencies including Border Patrol and the U.S. Coast Guard.
Even with all that coordination, it is still possible for a boat to slip through.
Oh, absolutely. There was ingenious ways to get narcotics into this country, and there's ingenious ways to get human beings into this country.
And this route more desirable now that the Trump administration has cracked down on crossings at the southwest border.
These human smugglers are being more creative. They see one route dropping off in the southwest border, and they're trying maritime routes more frequently.
In this audio message obtained exclusively by NBC News, a man identifying himself as a smuggler tells a prospective customer there are two viable boat routes, from Mexico to the Los Angeles area or from the Bahamas to the Miami area. The Bahamas particularly appealing because Chinese nationals can visit that country without a visa. The smuggler says he can take someone to the U.S. for $35,000. But even if you make it past law enforcement, there are more risks.
They're trying to jump off the boat at improvised docks. They can fall in the water. This area does have crocodiles.
There are crocodiles.
I saw one here 2 days ago.
Since January's incidents, Coral Gables police say they've ramped up water patrols.
What are you guys looking for when you're out here?
Anything that's out of the ordinary, people who may appear like they're fishing, but they may be lookouts. So we just have to keep an eye out for everything.
Bad actors also seem to be adapting. The smuggler sent this video of a yacht claiming that's how he's transporting migrants to the U.S. now. Writing in Mandarin, small boats will get in trouble. The big boat won't draw as much attention.
There's somebody in the van right there.
Police bracing for what smugglers may try next.
Where's it going to go next? It's like water. Water is going to go wherever it can go.
Jesse Kirsch reporting for us there. Now, NBC News has reached out to federal authorities for comment on this, have not heard back yet. But according to our reporting, an expert points that China's handling, if you can believe this, of the COVID-19 pandemic as potentially initially fueling an increase in undocumented migrants from that country trying to enter the U.S.
Let's get you some international headlines now. Russia says it's made more gains in Ukraine just as new peace talks get underway.
NBC's Matt Bodner joining us now with that and other world headlines this morning. Matt, good morning.
Sam, Savannah, good morning. Russia is claiming to have seized 2 more settlements in eastern Ukraine as they continue to press Ukrainian forces across a 600-mile front line. Ukraine, however, has not yet acknowledged Russia's claim. All of this, of course, happening against the backdrop of continued efforts to find a way forward in negotiations to end the war. Yesterday's attempt at direct Russian-Ukrainian talks in Turkey was a bust after Russia sent a low-level delegation, despite Zelensky's calls for Putin to show up himself. Talks have finally started today, and they're currently underway. Moving along now to Mexico, a 23-year-old influencer named Valeria Marquez was shot dead while live streaming on TikTok. The shocking murder now has social media users, as well as the authorities, speculating as to who did this and why. Some have suggested a cartel-related murder. Others, including state prosecutors, are leaning towards femicide, an act of violence motivated purely by the fact the victim was a woman. And we'll wrap up this hour in Japan with a critical scientific discovery. Researchers have identified the genetic code that is responsible for the orange fur found on ginger cats. The researchers say that cats with orange fur, which tend to be male, are missing DNA instructions that suppress a specific gene expression, resulting in lighter pigmentation. This is important because they believe it may help identify particular health issues experienced by ginger cats. This also applies to calico and tortoiseshell females, like my cat Nika. The researchers believe this genetic mutation may also be linked to personality and temperament, which may explain Nika's dog-like need for human attention. That said, further research is required. Back to you guys.
What do you think, Sam?
You couldn't even say that with a straight face. I will say.
We have to pull it up again. This is like baptism here on Morning News Now to the show. Can we please pull it up? Time? Matt, tell him a little bit about this picture.
My grandmother painted this, having never actually met the cat. This is just all done by photographs.
Yeah. It's a virtual Van Gogh.
So impressive. She's got that good, like the little orange patches, like we're talking about. Very realistic, Matt. Once again, talented grandma. Thank you, Matt.
Any reason to bring Nika to the table for a conversation?
We do come up with many reasons, don't you worry.
So proud of this.
Coming up, using AI to help save lives. We're going to show you the groundbreaking new technology that could detect heart disease earlier than ever.
And this is really important. I know something important to you as well, Savannah. Running on Hope. How one organization is working to improve what it calls a growing crisis of mental health among teens. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. We're back now with a look at how doctors on Long Island are using artificial intelligence to get ahead of the nation's leading cause of death, heart disease. At Stony Brook Medicine, physicians say that this new technology is helping them to spot earlier warning signs. And it's even convincing skeptics that AI could be a game changer when it comes to diagnostics. Reporter Greg Sergel from NBC New York explains.
Stony Brook medicine doctors An Chen and Michael Park see artificial intelligence.
So this is the only technology that is able to do this right now.
As a key to unraveling the mysteries of the leading cause of death among Americans.
This tool just gives us a very sensitive way of finding out whether or not you have heart disease.
AI begins its work by analyzing a CT heart scan like this one from a man in his 60s. In this case, the AI determined the man had blockages, but not bad enough to impact his heart blood flow. The AI also determined the man had dangerous amounts of bad plaque in his system.
So the yellow is the bad.
Yellow's the bad.
And thus was at a higher risk of a heart attack.
By allowing us to characterize the plaque, we could potentially intervene earlier and reverse disease, potentially getting rid of heart disease altogether.
The doctors here say the AI has learned from experience. It's analyzed heart data from thousands of patients and is thus able to use that to determine the extent of your heart disease.
He called me up and he said, I got great news. You don't have any major artery blockages.
Neil Sedrain is one of about 100 Stony Brook Heart Institute patients who've taken advantage of the AI technology. Stony Brook Medicine is the first hospital in New York to use AI in this way.
If the science advances the medicine or vice versa, I'm happy to help because I am a true believer in science.
The Stony Brook doctors stress AI analysis is just one tool they use. But this one, they say, provides details that could save lives.
It's a more complete picture of the person's individual risk for heart disease.
Any tool that you can use. That was our Greg Sergel reporting. Thank you for that.
Well, May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. So this morning, we are taking a look at the mental health crisis among adolescents right here in the U.S. Because listen to these stats. Nearly half of high school students reported persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness. I mean, really take that in, nearly half in the past year, according to the CDC. And suicide is one of the leading causes of death for teens ages 15 to 19. Now, many experts say the state of teen mental health is urgent. This is why the Hope for Teen Depression race and the foundation is going to happen this weekend. But we're so excited to have these guests here. It's an annual event that brings awareness to the struggles our nation's children are facing while raising money to continue research into better treatments and therapies. This year's Teen Race of Hope, it's going to be right here in New York City. It is on Sunday, and we are so excited. We have one of the lead student ambassadors of the race. Her name is Noelle Saldana here this morning, along with Louisa Benton, who's the executive director of Hope for Depression Research Foundation, and friends of mine. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. It's so good to see you. I'm so excited for you all in the race this weekend. First, let's just start, Noelle, I want to start with you. So you're a senior in high school this year, which is so exciting. We're so excited for you. Talk to us a little bit about what it is that you think some teens are experiencing, people that you know, that leads to an event like this being so important.
Yeah. Well, definitely in COVID and post-COVID, everyone went through bouts of like depression and just social anxiety and all of those types of things. And so these forms of depression and mental health illnesses came from COVID, and even post-COVID, we're still having issues like that. And so this event is so important just to spread awareness about what's going on inside of our heads.
That's so interesting that COVID could have sort of been like the catalyst for taking a closer look at behind what's going on with the crisis.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about like this event in general. So it's the third annual Teen Race for Hope. Was COVID sort of like what got this all started, or like what was the etymology of it? What was the background?
I think the background, I think COVID was definitely what you said, like a catalyst for the event, but stuff like this has been going on all along, and it was just never brought to the surface. And COVID definitely taught us that like this happens to everyone, this can happen to everyone. And so that's kind of where the event kind of grown from there.
And Louisa, tell us more broadly about the organization, about its aim, about how it works behind the scenes, which y'all have been able to accomplish.
Yes, thank you so much for that question, Savannah. The Hope for Depression Research Foundation is focused on learning more about what depression is in the brain so that we can bring that knowledge to come up with better treatments that can help real people with depression.
So there's obviously like predisposition for that, right? But also some of the external factors that teens have to deal with. And I know Savannah's done just a ton of reporting on this, pressure from social media platforms. How does that factor into where we are right now in 2025 when it comes to teen mental health? And I open that up to either one of you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, there's research on this, and experts are saying that this generation, Noelle's generation, is the first to be raised on social media, and that we're seeing the repercussions of that. And so I think we can all agree that there are real risks to being on social media all the time. There is bullying on social media, and there's all kinds of comparing yourself with others. Yeah. And so, that it's makes it a hard situation for a lot of teens, and it's constant.
I think we talk so much, right, about this, about what are solutions, and sometimes it feels like nothing is helping or we're not making progress. Other times there are these breakthroughs. I know, for example, your organization, you actually have this new type of medication. It's in clinical trials at Mount Sinai right now, and things like that are so exciting. Tell us about this and what type of breakthrough it could be.
Yeah, well, we're so excited because, you know, I think what we're talking about is listening. We need to listen to one another, but our scientists are listening to the special language of the brain, and they're able to take that and figure out new treatments. So this new treatment that's in clinical trials right now is our way of decoding what's going on and seeing whether we can translate that information into a real treatment. And so that's what that's about, this clinical trial.
It is also just interesting, the conversation in general, right? Like, there's been this groundswell of support and acknowledgement that transparency about struggling with your mental health is important for all of us to do, and just spotlight specifically teens as well in that process. Feels like it's a relatively recent evolution, but like a critical one. And it's important for you guys to be at the vanguard of that and talking about and coming on to shows like this.
Absolutely. Noelle, for people, even if they're not like in the New York City area, before we let you go, can you just tell us how anybody can jump in, help, get involved with your organization?
Yeah, I mean, we actually have ambassadors from outside the New York City area. We have people in Florida. We had a race. We had the Southampton race. We've been doing that for the past 10 years. Everyone's been involved in that. It's been so great. And you can also just come to our website at teenraceofhope.com and just get involved. And you can also just go on there to see the facts and just learn more about mental health and your solutions.
Teenraceofhope.com.
Yes.
Right? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Everybody check that out. Noelle Saldana and Louisa Benton, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It is so great to see both of you. And if you want to help raise awareness, as we just mentioned, around mental health and participate also in Sunday's race, you can register at the link right there on your screen. There's actually the link for the actual race. And also, by the way, if you or anyone you know is struggling, you can call or text, please call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988. Thank you again.
Important conversation, and obviously a cause that you have participated in for so long.
Well, thank you. All because of them and the work they're doing. Coming up, 2 live event giants accused of collusion over how they handled concerts canceled during the pandemic. The criminal investigation just launched by the Justice Department.
And Savannah, off-season drama. Why the Indianapolis Colts and the NFL are apologizing to Miami Dolphins star Tyreek Hill over a now deleted schedule release video. This is Morning News Now.
We are back with some growing health concerns in Tennessee that are linked to the artificial intelligence company xAI. It's owned by Elon Musk, and it has a data center based in Memphis, powered by turbines that run nonstop, but also emit hazardous chemicals. Now the community is pushing back. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk spoke to one of those residents.
In Memphis, Elon Musk is making a play to control the future of artificial intelligence. His company, xAI, says it has built the biggest supercomputer in the world with lightning speed. Paul Young is the city's mayor.
It represents a tremendous opportunity, an opportunity for us to take our economy to the next level.
xAI says it will create $100 million in revenue and hundreds of jobs. But the digital future needs power, lots of it. These are the gas turbines fueling the supercomputer they call Colossus. They emit hazardous pollutants like formaldehyde and nitrogen oxides, according to the manufacturer.
Just over this fence, you can see and hear the turbines churning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Without them, the data center does not function. What's not in dispute is the fact that they are polluting the air. What people don't know is how much of that pollution is reaching nearby communities.
Easter Knox lives 2 miles away.
You smelled it?
Yes, Lord.
Right away?
I sure did. Well, you know, after they got situated, I started smelling it.
Knox lives in Boxtown, a mostly black, low-income neighborhood in South Memphis.
The health department, they need to be ashamed.
Where industry has taken a toll for generations.
There's a lot of people out here who got medical problems like breathing issues.
Cancer risks here are 4 times higher than the national average. Cancer killed her father and other relatives, Knox tells us. Life expectancy here is 9 years less than the national average. Elon Musk's company is not to blame for those numbers, but that legacy and those turbines have triggered a backlash against XAI.
Hello, everyone.
A recent health department hearing turned into a shouting match. An executive from XAI ducking out a side door. The mayor says the city is hoping to start testing the air in the next 2 months.
Right now, there are people in that community that feel like they have been railroaded by XAI, that they weren't a part of the conversation when it was approved, and now they're bearing the brunt of its existence.
Well, I think it's important for us to have direct dialogue. I take their concerns deeply serious.
Among their concerns, the company is running the turbines without a permit. But the health department says that's okay for the first year. And after city officials said there were 15 turbines, environmental advocates released this thermal image. They say it shows twice that many active.
As soon as we saw the image, we called like, hey, we had a conversation. What's happening with these additional ones?
So they're not using those?
No. They're in idle mode in case they are needed.
XAI declined to be interviewed, but tells NBC News it is using pollution-minimizing technology and working with public officials to stop relying on the turbines by the end of this year. XAI has also pledged to build a water treatment facility for the city.
Elected officials are working for and conspiring with industry in order to draw profits.
Community organizer Keyshawn Pearson has lived in South Memphis most of his life. He says he is skeptical XAI will create hundreds of jobs and doubts the mayor's promise that its tax dollars will be directed to improve these neighborhoods.
We don't want money in exchange for our lungs or in exchange for our lives. We want clean air, we want clean water, clean soil, just like everybody else.
Stephanie Gosk, NBC News.
All right, Steph, thanks so much. More financial headlines. Now, the DOJ is digging into whether big concert companies are teaming up to avoid giving refunds to fans during the pandemic.
CNBC's Savannah Hanau joins us with that and some other money news for you this morning. Hi, Savannah. Good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Sam. Good morning. Happy Friday to you guys. Yeah, so the Justice Department is conducting a criminal probe into how Live Nation and AEG handled concerts that were canceled at the start of the pandemic in 2020. Now, Live Nation has confirmed the investigation while also denying any collusion. Bloomberg reports the probe is focused on whether the companies colluded on refund policies. Live Nation says it's not illegal for artists, promoters, and ticketing companies to work together to solve the unprecedented challenges of a global pandemic. Meanwhile, Charter Communications striking a deal to merge with rival Cox, uniting two of the biggest U.S. cable providers. The transaction values Cox at more than $34 billion, and it comes as cable companies are facing increasing competition from wireless providers such as AT&T and T-Mobile, who are luring away their broadband customers, while streaming services like Netflix have upended the traditional pay TV business. And the military parade celebrating the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary could cost up to $45 million. The Army confirming that that number for the parade on June 14th, which also happens to be President Trump's 79th birthday. It's slated to feature more than 6,000 soldiers, 50 military aircraft, and 150 tanks and other vehicles. A fireworks display, military demonstrations, and live music will also be held on the National Mall, guys.
All right, Silvana, thank you so much.
A little pageantry there. Thank you, Silvana. Well, we're still 4 months away from the official start of the NFL season, but one team already got a flag on the play, so to speak. The Indianapolis Colts had to apologize to the Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill because of a video that it made to roll out the team's schedule online. It comes as the Colts and a lot of other teams, frankly, try to get the attention of the league's youngest fans by trying to turn something routine into a viral moment. The Colts spawning what turned out to be an NFL schedule release disaster, issuing an apology to Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill after trying to win some viral street cred. In the now deleted video, Indianapolis appears to be making light of Hill's controversial 2024 arrest when officers dragged him out of his car in Miami as he tried to drive to a game. No charges from that, but the serious incidents playing out in Minecraft form. banking on the popularity of the billion-dollar box office hit that's huge among kids. The Colts apparently not getting permission from Microsoft to do that either. The apology to both, telling NBC News they deleted the video because it, quote, exceeded our rights with Microsoft and involved an insensitive clip involving Hill. The all-pro wide receiver not offended, saying the Colts should have left the video up. But no apologies from the Los Angeles Chargers, who did get permission from Microsoft. You see the disclaimer here, before spending nearly 5 minutes trolling pretty much every fan base on their schedule. Too many inside jokes to explain here. Others also chasing their viral moment, the Buffalo Bills, using AI.
AI, thanks for doing this today.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I here?
As in NBA Hall of Famer Allen Iverson, that is. As the Ravens opted for a Severance theme.
Hey kids, what's for dinner?
But the biggest pattern appears to be an appeal to kids. The 49ers invoking Oregon Trail, the Commanders going with Roller Coaster Tycoon, and the Seahawks channeling 80s action figures. It's a key demographic for the NFL. A 2024 poll of parents with kids under 11 revealing that half say their little ones are fans of the league. But while 2/3 say their kids like to play sports, fewer than half say their kids want to watch sports. The NFL's Ian Trombetta with social media and content marketing says the schedule release video strategy has been a smashing success for all audiences, but certainly reaches younger and newer fans.
We've seen so many posts of people saying, I haven't actually watched an NFL game, but I've watched all 32 of these videos, of these schedule release videos. And that gives you an indication that we're hitting, again, that ticket buyer or that season ticket holder all the way down to a fan that may not have ever watched the game.
And with some preteens spending up to 4 hours a day on social media, teams now need to pull out all the stops for eyeballs, even if the league doesn't need those eyeballs for another 4 months.
All right, Sam. You've got your team. You love their video.
New York Giants. Every single team has their own video. The Giants decided to do this as like a reality cast unveiling, and each one of the people on the team had like a different, NFL franchise they're representing. Right. The Raiders, the Giants are playing them this year. The guy that represents the Raiders, he's got the spikes, he's got the paint, the whole deal, and then he breaks out this like dainty British accent and starts talking about drinking tea because the Giants and the Raiders are playing in London this year. It's brilliant.
That's good. That's funny.
It's amazing. All the teams were creative. The NFL just owns the space basically all year long.
Was the Giants the best one?
I like the Giants personally.
Yeah.
The Chargers is also
biased opinion, though. There you go. Well, they left us in San Diego. Anyway, coming up, countdown to tip-off. Grab your popcorn because the WNBA season starts tonight.
Savannah, that's right. And between a brand new team, superstar Caitlin Clark, and a talented rookie class, it is set to be a slam dunk. We'll get a full preview next on Morning News Now. And welcome back on this Friday. We are ending the hour with a major moment right now for women's sports. The WNBA is tipping off its 29th season tonight. And it's not just an extension, Savannah, of last year's monstrous momentum. It's a full-on leap forward.
Woo!
Yeah, I like the enthusiasm there. From the highly anticipated debut of the Golden State Valkyries.
I love them.
Return, yeah, that's an awesome story. To the return of reigning MVP Asia Wilson and rising superstar, you might have heard of her, Caitlin Clark. The league is stacked with talent and headliners.
Add in a rookie class that includes #1 pick Paige Beckers, and the stage is set for another slam dunk of a season.
Just love the basketball puns. Can't get enough. We've got friend of the show, Baker Machado, here with us. He is the host of Front Office Sports Today. Baker, good morning. We mentioned Paige Beckers. Obviously, she's the #1 pick this year. Caitlin Clark the year before her. They both feel like supernovas. How has that injected newfound enthusiasm?
I mean, beyond, especially given the fact that you're having two women, Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark, who have such huge name recognition, were all-stars when they were in college as well. And with Paige Beckers, she's taking over a team in Dallas who was basically at the bottom of the barrel for so many years. Now that she's injected life into the city of Dallas, and let's not forget, Dallas also got the #1 pick in Cooper Flagg on the men's side as well. So Dallas has two #1 picks over the course of the last year. But yeah, her team, the Wings, is going to be so much more improved over the course of the last year. They have a tough opener tonight against Minnesota. Nafisa Collier, likely the front runner to be the MVP this year for Minnesota. They were one foul away from basically winning the WNBA title last year against the New York Liberty. So they have a tough tough matchup today, but Paige Becker's definitely going to be really exciting to watch tonight.
I know we're already talking MVP.
I know, we haven't even tipped off yet.
It's
right?
so hot already. I mean, you're mentioning so many people. What do we think? Give us a run
so
through.
you mentioned Asia Wilson, who basically is one of the biggest stars in this league. Also, Nafisa Collar, who won Defensive Player of the Year. She is basically the front runner right now to win the MVP. The WNBA did a survey of all of the general managers, and she took the top spot with almost 40% of the vote. Oh, by the way, there's this other person named Caitlin Clark that's in this picture
Not
as
familiar
well.
with her. Does she play basketball?
She is. She's a pretty big deal. Of course, she is selling out arenas all over the place. The Fever guys are such a big draw that when they go on the road, opposing teams have to rent out a bigger stadium because the stadium that they have right now was not big enough to hold all of the attention for Caitlin Clark.
To be clear, they weren't good.
No, they were not good. They were not. Which is why they had the number one. Which is why they had the number one pick to get Caitlin Clark in the first place. And also, Indiana has added a lot of new players and really good players to their roster. So Indiana, which made the playoffs last year, likely going to go much deeper into the playoffs this next year as well.
Real quickly, because I know time is narrowing here for us, there's a groundbreaking development in the Bay Area as well.
Yes.
You know, the Valkyries team and the first Asian American coach in the WNBA. That's a big deal.
And this is the first expansion team since 2008. The WNBA has not done this in a while, and the attention for this is incredible. 10,000 season tickets already sold to the Golden State Valkyries.
That's so great.
That is a record for the WNBA, which, by the way, is coming off their best attendance in 22 years last year, a 48% increase from the previous year. A lot of that has to do with Caitlin Clark, but either way, attention for the WNBA is at an all-time high right now.
I also love Bay Area basketball. Okay, you got the Warriors. How do you not have a women's team?
And they're sharing the same arena with the Warriors.
They're sharing an arena. They have their old facility. It's very cool, the two teams. That's one thing I actually know a little bit about.
You know a lot.
Can I get a high five?
We interviewed a lot of those members. Baker, great to see you, and congrats on your show.
Thank you,
Just
guys.
launched recently. We're so happy for you. Great to have you. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you, Baker. That also does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But don't go anywhere. The news continues right now. Good morning, and we can start with some good news. It's Friday. Thanks for being here. I'm Savannah Sellers.
Is that good news that I'm here in for Joe Fryer? Is that where we're
That's
going
great
with this?
news.
Okay, I figured that's
Sam
what
Brock's
you meant.
here.
Right now on Morning News Now, ticket to strike. Hundreds of thousands of commuters in New Jersey are scrambling to try to find a way to work this morning. Critical transit workers in the Garden State walking off the job after union negotiations over better pay collapsed overnight. More on how it could impact travel across the greater New York City area. Plus, the ATC meltdown in Denver earlier this week is putting passengers on edge. And another round of wild weather from Mother Nature causing chaos all over the Midwest, even spawning some possible tornadoes, including what you're looking at on your screen right now, caught on camera in Wisconsin. This latest swath of severe weather, even forcing the Queen Bee herself, Beyonce, to press pause on night one of her Cowboy Carter tour in Chicago. Our Angie Lastman is tracking it all for you for this weekend. Also this morning, Florida's water wars. The Sunshine State, now the latest to slap a ban on fluoride in its H2O supply. But not everybody is exactly on board with this plan. Why some dentists say it could prove detrimental to residents' teeth, especially for younger children. And later in the hour, if it's Friday, you know we've got you covered on the breakdown, the latest and greatest from the world of Hollywood. That includes this classic slice of American cinema, or Americana, if you will. Moviegoers thinking twice about going for a swim, turning 50 this year. It's everything you simply cannot miss this weekend.
Did you say Friday?
I sure did. I feel like it's universally understood. Oh, it wasn't. It's not on the teleprompter. Thanks for revealing my
just
move
checking.
there.
No, I'm happy you did it. I like it. Friday.
Savannah, something that is not so celebratory
Yeah, no
right now.
kidding.
Thousands of commuters across New Jersey and New York City right now bracing for travel disruption this morning.
That's right. It's after members of the Railroad Engineers Union for New Jersey Transit went on strike overnight in what's the first walkout in more than 40 years. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen said its members were striking after contract talks over wages collapsed late last night. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa has the latest for us from Hoboken, New Jersey.
Hey there. Well, New Jersey's governor even urging people who typically rely on these trains to work from home if they can. That's how big of a disruption this strike is anticipated to cause. You can see some of the workers already joining the picket line as hundreds of thousands of daily commuters brace to feel the impact on these already congested roads.
Overnight, one of the country's biggest transportation systems screeching to a halt as train engineers for New Jersey Transit walked off the job after salary negotiations failed, their first statewide strike in more than 40 years.
We presented them the last proposal. They rejected it and walked away with 2 hours left on the clock.
The strike across the massive system serving New Jersey, New York, and the Philadelphia area, leaving hundreds of thousands of commuters now scrambling to find other options.
I get worried about when the train's late. A strike is a whole new level. I'm going to freak out.
It comes just a week before one of the busiest travel weekends of the year. The sticking point, wages. New Jersey Transit's 450 train engineers say they haven't gotten a raise in 5 years and make at least $10 less per hour than engineers who work for other railroad companies sharing the same train platforms. While New Jersey and the company contend cost cutting is necessary and urging engineers to come back to the negotiating table.
Let's get back to the table and seal a deal. The workers and families who rely on our transit system every single day are the backbone of our entire economy.
New Jersey Transit encouraging regular commuters to work from home and adding more buses to the road. But with the overwhelming flood of passengers, riders are bracing for Friday commuter chaos.
And that contingency plan isn't expected to go into effect until Monday. And even with those additional buses, officials point out that makes up just about 20% of the capacity that the trains would typically carry people into work. The negotiations are expected to resume on Sunday. Back to you.
Emily, thank you. And to the skies now. This morning, we're learning new details of yet another air traffic control outage. This time, it's in Denver, a critical hub for both United and Southwest Airlines. The FAA says the controllers briefly lost several radio channels that allow them to communicate with pilots. They did not, however, ever lose radar, and planes remain separated. This comes after a very similar incident occurred recently, of course, at Newark Airport in New Jersey. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello, who covers aviation for us, has much more.
Yeah, good day. This was a brief radio outage at Denver Center. It covers 9 states, high-altitude air traffic control out of Denver. So the DOT secretary tells me that nationwide, they are experiencing hundreds of radio glitches and blips every single week. But a total outage, even though it's brief, that's very unusual and very concerning, and underscores the current state of ATC and how it's struggling to keep up. It happened on Monday at Denver Center, which handles high-altitude air traffic.
916 file number center, hello?
The FAA says controllers lost some radio frequencies as they coordinated air traffic. The outage lasting roughly 90 seconds.
For any traffic area on 120575, we're supposed to switch over to Denver 118.475.
While they still had radar contact, and the FAA says controllers used another frequency to relay instructions to pilots, aircraft remained safely separated, and there were no impacts to operations. Denver is the country's 3rd largest airport and a critical hub for United, Southwest, and Frontier. The loss of radios at Denver comes after a string of radio and radar outages at Newark Airport, also a United hub, highlighting the national shortage of air traffic controllers and decades-old technology shown on this table, but still in use by controllers nationwide.
Our radar is from the 70s. We have a couple new ones from early 80s.
A veteran controller who oversees planes flying into Newark airspace tells the Wall Street Journal the stress levels are very high, recounting how he averted a midair collision on May 4th.
I was getting tired. I was having to utilize a combination of radar and non-radar rules that I basically just made up on the fly to separate aircraft in such a way that I could be prepared for losing radar.
The FAA is now rushing to install fiber optic telecom lines to back up the radios and radars at Newark. Now, an urgent push for Congress to spend tens of billions of dollars to upgrade the nation's aging ATC systems, and soon.
There is widespread agreement that we have a problem.
While in Washington this week, a rare meeting between the airlines and the FAA, hoping to voluntarily reduce the number of flights into and out of Newark as it struggles with hours-long delays. The meeting between the airlines and the FAA expected to continue in Washington today. Meanwhile, at Newark, there's an awful lot of hope that once they reopen that one runway that is under construction, when they reopen that around June 15th, hopefully they will start to see more incremental improvement there at Newark. Back to you.
Tom, thank you.
Well, now let's get to this days-long stretch of severe weather nationwide. At least 9 reported tornadoes like the one we're showing you right now in Wisconsin tore across the Midwest yesterday. And at Soldier Field in Chicago, the wild weather even kept Queen Bee from her hive. Beyonce's Cowboy Carter show was delayed for several hours as severe storms forced fans to shelter in place. Look at this video. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa, she's at Soldier Field in Chicago. She joins us with the very latest. Maggie, just yesterday I was like, I hope it doesn't mess up the Beyonce concert after you mentioned that, and here we are.
I know. I hate to think that conversation brought this to fruition. I mean, this forecast was coming in hard. We knew the chances of this were very likely, or at least possible. And yesterday, Soldier Field behind me, last night, indeed, it was chaotic. These storms forcing Beyonce to delay her concert, forcing fans to shelter in place. Thankfully, in the end, everyone was safe. But in other parts of the country, people weren't so lucky.
A severe weather outbreak causing chaos overnight, with at least 9 suspected tornadoes tearing across the Midwest, along with intense winds, hail, and lightning.
Folks, we have more than 1,100 strikes happening all over the Milwaukee metro area.
One video showing a group of children in Wisconsin spotting the weather through their bus window. Elsewhere in the state, the storms flattening buildings. While in Chicago, storms colliding with night one of Beyonce's Cowboy Carter Windy City Run in open-air Soldier Field.
So we are in the stadium. We're sheltering in place until we can get to our seats.
After an hours-long delay, Queen Bee eventually taking the stage. Soldier Field telling NBC News, our role is to keep our guests safe and secure. And more severe storms expected from the Midwest to the Northeast this weekend, while large parts of the country are also dealing with unseasonable heat.
Does it feel like the heat came early?
Yes, it did.
At least 12 cities breaking records yesterday, but a bright spot in Minnesota, as crews say extra resources and calming winds are helping turn the tide against rare wildfires there.
Today we have made good progress.
Elsewhere, many making the best of this summer-like scorcher.
It feels amazing. I mean, it's like breaking through the clouds right now, like, oh. So.
You were psyched about this heat.
Yes, absolutely. I want it hotter.
You want it hotter?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Got to tell you, that answer blew me away. I mean, to each their own. One final note, guys. In addition to the Beyonce storm delay yesterday, O'Hare Airport also issuing a temporary ground stop to all incoming flights, just really taking no chances while these storms rolled through. Savannah.
All right, Maggie, thank you so much.
So that shot a little misleading because it's so beautiful and picturesque. The calm, I guess, after the storm. Let's get a closer look right now at the severe weather, though, heading back into the weekend with your Morning News Now weather.
Angie Lassman's here with that fabulous forecast for us. Great news. Good morning, Angie.
Good morning, guys. I like how you led me into that, Savannah. Yes, fabulous in some spots, but a little bumpy in others. Listen, if you like the heat, it's the southern tier of the country that is going to be well above normal, but we do have a couple spots we're going to watch to potentially be dangerous. San Antonio, Austin, you see those heat advisories already up at this hour. And this high pressure system is just kind of hanging around right off the coast of Florida, leaving us with these really warm winds and the potentials for more record-breaking high temperatures as we get through the day today. So it's the high 90s. We could potentially see some records in San Antonio. Notice Jacksonville, 97 with that record for this date set at 96. I don't think it'll be hard for us to tie some of these records as well. Atlanta being one of those spots. Tomorrow, essentially more of the same. Look at Laredo, 106 degrees. So taking it slow, a little extra water, finding the AC, all of that is going to be key here as we get into our weekend across parts of the southern half of the country. The northern tier of the east, still pretty warm. I mean, it's not unbearable, and we don't have advisories or watches and warnings in effect, but still running way above normal for this time of year. 85 degrees in Detroit, mid-80s for Paducah, even New York City, 77 degrees for today. Look back to the west, though. We've got kind of cooler than normal air spilling into parts of the northern plains. We've got a system moving through that area. And this is going to make a difference when it comes to temperatures across parts of the Great Lakes and the Midwest for tomorrow. So we go to the 50s for Minneapolis. Meanwhile, you move just south to Dallas, and it's 90 degrees or triple digits for San Antonio. As we get through your Saturday in Washington, D.C., mid-80s, we'll still keep it quite warm across that region. And we keep it that way kind of essentially even into early next week. So we get through Sunday with the low 80s in Richmond. We end up in the upper 70s by Tuesday, upper 80s for Wilmington all through the weekend and into early next week. And we kind of hang out in the 70s for New York City. We're still going to be into the 90s across parts of the Southern Plains. That essentially doesn't let up even through most of next week. So heads up for that. Meanwhile, we've got more severe weather. You just heard Maggie talking about it. Those storms that we saw across parts of the Midwest yesterday, of course, got our attention, and we've got more potential for that today. It's going to be the heavy rain and potentially the strong winds across parts of the Midwest, but that's not where we'll see those really strong storms. Those are focused across the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. Dallas, essentially, to Washington, D.C. is the broader area. But I really want you to focus on Evansville, Nashville, those locations, essentially Indianapolis to points south like Memphis. That's where you could see those stronger tornadoes. We could see the EF2s or higher, Nashville included in that, Bowling Green, Lexington as well. But the wind gusts, the hail, all on the table for us. And essentially that goes for tomorrow, too. We'll still see that severe weather across parts of the mid-Atlantic in the daytime hours, and then the later parts of the day, it's the southern and central plains that we'll have to watch for. You can see the big picture area there, those damaging winds, hail, guys. All of that is going to be possible as we get through your day tomorrow. But if you're looking for some sunshine, how about the Great Lakes with a nice cool breeze, or maybe the Southwest? Lows or highs into the 90s? No? Doesn't tickle your
want to take us away
What about a little bit of rain, guys?
What can I do to put you into this Southwest trip
What about
today?
a cool breeze?
What is your ideal forecast?
That's a good question.
I would say the 60s, 70s sounds great. I was in Chicago this past weekend for Mother's Day with my wife, and it was not hot. The people
and you like
demand
that?
more heat. I do like cool.
You know what that's called? The Goldilocks forecast.
It is. You know what? The people ask and you deliver.
San Diego?
Yeah.
Perhaps.
There you go.
Sounds like we're taking a trip.
Let's go, guys.
Thank you, Angie.
Got it.
Well, President Trump is on his way home to Washington this morning after a 4-day tour of the Middle East. Following jam-packed stops in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, he spent the day in Abu Dhabi for the final leg of the trip. The president's time in the Persian Gulf was filled with lavish welcomes, some attempts at international diplomacy, and promises of big business deals. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haig has been traveling with the president. He joins us live from Abu Dhabi with the latest. Hi, Garrett. Good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Good morning. Yeah, the president is on his way back to the United States after a packed schedule across these 4 days, mostly focused on development, business deals, trying to bring international investment back to the United States. But there was a fair bit of diplomacy as well, specifically focused on Iran. The president confirming just before he took off that Iran is in possession of a formal offer from the United States to end its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. The president and a lot of leaders in this region hoping to resolve peacefully a source of great tension here for many years. This morning, President Trump receiving a royal send-off from the United Arab Emirates. A fitting finale to a 4-day foreign trip packed with spectacle and statecraft. The president touting major new investment pledges from all three nations visited.
People have said they've never seen anything like's taken place over the last 4 days in terms of investment, but it's really jobs.
The president also shifting the U.S.'s approach toward longtime foes. Today, again sounding an optimistic note on nuclear negotiations with Iran, the regional rival looming just across the Persian Gulf.
We have an Iran situation. It'll be taken care of 100%. It'll be done nicely or not nicely. And the not nicely is not a good thing for them. And I think we're talking to them, and I think they've come a long way.
Iran's foreign minister overnight saying Tehran is negotiating and willing to be transparent, but adding that Iran has rights to nuclear enrichment for civilian purposes. And Trump lifting sanctions on Syria's new government and meeting with its new president, a former al-Qaeda member who since split with the group.
He's got the potential. He's a real leader. And, he led a charge, and he's pretty amazing.
But the trip overshadowed at times by bipartisan concern about the president's plan to accept the gift of a $400 million luxury Boeing jet from Qatar to serve as a new Air Force One, then be donated to his presidential library.
I don't understand why we would pursue this.
The White House and Qataris shrugging off criticism and saying the proposal is still under legal review. The president nodding to his desire to replace the aging Air Force One fleet today.
I've been doing this for 4 days. I leave now and get onto a 42-year-old Boeing. But new ones are coming. New ones are coming.
The president on that long flight back to the States right now, but he's got something to look forward to when he lands. He said before leaving that he's excited to meet his new grandson, born to daughter Tiffany Trump, while he's been here in the Middle East. Savannah.
All right, Garrett, thank you so much. Safe travels home.
Well, Savannah, the great state of Florida is now officially the second state to ban fluoride from its public drinking water after Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill into law yesterday. Not everybody, including many healthcare professionals, are exactly on board with that decision. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch has more.
This morning, a major change in Florida, rewriting decades of public health policy that was aimed at protecting people from developing cavities.
Local governments cannot engage in this fluoride forced medication.
On Thursday, Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill into law banning municipalities from adding fluoride to drinking water, making Florida the second state to do so after Utah.
What does this mean for the people of Florida?
This means that they are going to lose the protection that they naturally get from the water that they drink on a daily basis.
The American Dental Association says fluoride in water safely and dramatically reduces tooth decay by at least 25%, according to some research. Fluoride has been added to Americans' drinking water since the 1940s, but some, including the Trump administration's top health official, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., have raised concerns about fluoride's potential impact on children's cognitive abilities.
We want high IQ kids.
Health experts say research does not back up that fear, but Kennedy has encouraged banning fluoride in water.
We now know that virtually all the benefit is from topical, and we can get that through mouthwashes, we can get through fluoridated toothpaste.
Ingestion of fluoride in the form of fluoridating the water is the strongest, the safest, and the best for decay prevention. It gets deeper into the tooth enamel.
Dr. Beatrice Terry, a Miami area dentist, says young children especially benefit from fluoridated water.
They're getting the protection even before the baby teeth erupt and even before the permanent teeth erupt.
But for Florida's governor, a vocal critic of COVID lockdowns, this is yet another case of government overreach.
You should be able to make decisions on the basis of informed consent.
That was Jesse Kirsch reporting. And fluoridating water, by the way, is seen as also a way to cut down on costs for dental care. It provides some protections to teeth naturally, which is especially helpful for populations who might not be able to see a dentist as often as they should.
Well, there's much more to come on this Friday edition of Morning News Now. A little later, we'll take you to the D.C. high school that's teaching students to be a little more civil when talking about politics.
We could all use a little civility these days. But first, after the break, Russia and Ukraine coming together in Turkey for their first peace talks in 3 years. We'll take you live to Istanbul this morning with how the conversations are moving forward. That's next. Stay with us.
Welcome back. The Eurovision Song Contest rehearsals were interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters who booed the singer from Israel during her performance yesterday. NBC News correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian explains the controversy.
It is the biggest music competition in the world, this year hosted by Switzerland. Hello, Europe! Around 160 million viewers tune in to Eurovision, and thousands travel from around the world.
So many people, so many flags, so many countries. We are very excited to be here.
Singers representing more than 30 countries across Europe and Australia put on their best live performance. For a contest of dance bangers, daring pyrotechnics, and flamboyant costumes. But for a second year in a row, there's been controversy over the participation of one country, Israel. The Israeli entry, Yuval Raphael, is a survivor of the October 7th attack on the Nova Music Festival, witnessing horrific scenes as people around her were killed. Darkness will fade. Her song, A New Day Will Rise, is a ballad about life going on after darkness and pain. But with Israel's war in Gaza raging on and the death toll rising every single day, there have been calls to ban the country from Eurovision over its conduct in the conflict. criticism that Israel rebukes by saying it's not intentionally targeting civilians. At Sunday's opening ceremony, protesters booed the Israeli delegation, and more than 70 former contestants have signed a letter asking organizers to take action. They write, "We refuse to allow music to be used as a tool to whitewash crimes against humanity." But organizers have defended their decision not to expel Israel from the contest, saying in a statement that their role is to ensure that Eurovision remains at its heart a universal event that promotes connections, diversity, and inclusion through music. Ahead of her performance last night, Yuval said she had been preparing for the protests.
I've been mentally preparing for this. The main and the sole purpose that I'm here for, and it's to give the best performance, bring pride to my country.
Despite the controversy, Israel made it through to Saturday's finale when a total of 26 countries will be vying for the coveted title of Eurovision champion. And if streaming numbers are anything to go by, keep an eye on Sweden, which has produced a song that is both very catchy and very Scandinavian. A song that's all about sweating it out in the sauna.
All right, Danielle, thanks so much for that report. The finale, more context news. The finale will stream live on Peacock tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern.
All right. Staying abroad.
Yeah.
Moving the page. Now, Russian-Ukrainian delegations just met face-to-face for the first time in 3 years for talks aimed at ending this ongoing war between the countries.
Yeah, the talks were brokered by Turkey, which hosted negotiators in Istanbul. A U.S. delegation led by Secretary of State Mark Rubio met with Ukrainian and Turkish officials ahead of those talks.
NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons is with us from Istanbul this morning. Keir, thanks so much for being with us, my friend. I guess this is not, of course, the first high-level meeting, but perhaps some would have wanted to see between Presidents Putin and Zelensky, right? So who did both countries send and how did the talks go?
Hey, Sam. Well, no saunas in there, but it has been tense. And we're just hearing that that meeting has now broken up. Just under 2 hours of meeting. It's happening, and these two negotiating teams are still inside this former palace. It's the first direct talks between the Russians and the Ukrainians in 3 years. So it is significant, but you're right. At the same time, President Zelensky, for example, saying the Russians sent a negotiating team that aren't allowed to make any decisions. Obviously, we would know otherwise, right, from the headlines. There's no President Trump in there. There's no President Putin in there. There's no President Zelensky in there. And the talks almost didn't happen. They had to really struggle to keep them on track. They were supposed to be yesterday. So we now wait. I mean, it's literally just before you came to me, we heard that they've broken up. We wait to see what the result is, but I suspect it will be that they are as far apart as ever.
Keir, ultimately remind us what each country was aiming to get out of these initial talks.
Well, that's a great question because it goes to that point about how far apart they are.
Right.
So the Ukrainians, again, saying, even while the talks are happening, that they are simply wanting to talk about a sustainable ceasefire. That's their priority. That's their only topic that they want to focus on. And then they get to the issues after that, once the Russians had agreed to that, which the Russians have not. And on the Russian side, they say that they want to talk about the root causes of the conflict, which translates as that they want Ukraine, for example, to be mostly neutral, certainly not a member of NATO, potentially that they want more land than the Russian soldiers already occupy illegally inside of Ukraine's internationally recognized borders, so that there's huge distance between the two sides. And I think, again, that's why very likely, although they have been talking for a few hours, that they are very likely not going to have come to terms. I should say, just as an example, we've heard from inside that the Ukrainians insisted on translators. Those Ukrainian delegates would very likely be able to understand Russian, almost all of them, but they insisted on translators, and I think that just gives you an example of how much the two sides are kind of facing off rather than talking peace.
Just another layer of complication there. Thank you, Kira.
Kira, thanks so much.
Well, coming up next, from the Met Gala to the mall.
Yeah, when Morning News Now returns, we're catching up with one of the most iconic names in high fashion, Zac Posen, on his new leading role at The Gap. He's bringing red carpet looks to everyday style. That's up next. Stay with us. We are back with someone who knows a thing or two about turning heads on and off the runway. Designer Zac Posen is taking his high fashion eye to a very different kind of catwalk in a new role as the creative director of Gap Inc. I sat down with him to chat about his Met Gala look, the Anne Hathaway dress that went viral, and what it means to bring red carpet magic to everyday style.
Zac Posen, a name synonymous with luxury and high fashion, has taken on a high-profile role, the creative director of Gap Inc.
I mean, this is a once-in-a-lifetime. This is YOLO. This is the YOLO moment.
Posen, a storied designer with a major celebrity following and a brand bearing his name, taking the creative helm at a mall mainstay, founded in San Francisco in 1969.
I was meeting with different companies, figuring out what the next opportunity would be. I went to coffee and French fries at Balthazar with a man named Richard Dixon. And I knew within about 3 minutes. Within 3 minutes, I kind of was like, okay, let's go.
Richard Dixon, the CEO of the company that encompasses Gap, Old Navy, Banana Republic, and Athleta, offered Posen that role that wasn't originally hands-on designing. But that changed with a certain phone call.
You have just finished last year's Met Gala, and you get a call from Anne Hathaway. I want a dress. What'd you think in that moment?
Sure, I'll make my girl Annie a dress. I think I dressed her for like Princess Diaries. You know what I mean? We go way back. I made her one of her first red carpets. So we've known each other, a long time. I literally was like, crawled into the office tired. I was like, okay, that's when the best work happens. I started chopping into one of our kind of iconic white shirt dresses. Within a few weeks, she wore it. It happened. We put it online. It sold out within minutes.
I remember seeing the photo of her. She looks amazing, and I love that dress. And then I remember finding out it's Gap. It's Zac at Gap.
Yeah.
And being like, wow, is that going to be something I can own? Is that the effect that you want it to have on people?
Absolutely. What an amazing opportunity with the manpower and the machine behind the company to be able to produce something at a speed to market, not in a fast fashion format, but moving at speed. Makes me really excited.
That one dress turned into what's now called Gap Studio.
This is hitting stores any moment.
A line designed by Posen, putting a spin on the American company's classics.
It's gone totally viral.
Oh, that's the coolest. To be able to see people's reactions, to see pieces selling out. I mean, there were just these incredible stats happening that I was just so proud.
Those stats evident in the company's earnings, beating expectations and adding new customers for 8 straight quarters, even seeing store traffic grow since Posen's been in the role. Something Mark Breitbart, the head of Gap Global, isn't surprised by.
It's brought a level of moving at culture, at the speed of culture, and brought Gap into the cultural conversation. We have never been at the Met Gala before.
But oh, are they now? This year, Posen's Gap Studio look for actress Laura Harrier, a major favorite.
This is like the rough sketch. I started just thinking about a vest and what brings it into kind of something that touches into something Gap. So I thought shirting. The pants originally were jeans.
Oh.
And it just wasn't feeling snazzy enough. We started to put together mood boards. Laura brought in inspiration from her family into there in this idea of a suit.
So this is actually her family?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then this idea of combining Duchess and denim. I thought that was just kind of fun to do Duchess and denim. And then this is the finished piece.
Can I say a very large population would love if you did a Gap Studio version of the vest, the shirt, and the pants?
We'll try.
Will you?
We'll try. You never know. You never know.
For now, we have the famous Anne Hathaway dress. And while I had the designer himself,
you look incredible.
I'm obsessed.
You got your summer dress.
I had to pop it on, right?
The drop.
The drop.
The drop there is kind of cool.
The
it's
drop.
An attitude there.
I'm honored to be wearing your dress and have you...
Well, enjoy it. Fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, he was so much fun. Just the nicest guy.
You get the best assignments.
No, I know. We really wanted to talk to him. I was so excited when they said yes. But get this. Isn't this a fun fact? The name Gap Way back in the 60s, they picked it to mean generation gap. And they feel like right now they've like never kind of embodied that more than when they have these returning customers they've had for decades and now this whole new generation coming into the fold because they've gone viral.
It's still happening today. And
Yeah.
also you were saying that he actually sort of trailblazed the high fashion into everyday stores movement.
Yes, with his Target collaboration. You were saying like it's cool when they do that. I'm like, he actually was at the forefront of that. Yeah, it's very cool. So he's an awesome guy. Thanks, Sam. All right, when we come back, tired of awkward, maybe even contentious conversations around the dinner table, maybe even at work over politics? Well, let's talk about it.
Civilly, of course. After the break, we will take you to the D.C. high school that's prepping students to have more constructive one-on-ones about hot-button issues. Important stuff. And our Ali Vitale has that story for us next. And welcome back on this Friday. With a busy news cycle amidst a tense political climate, having simple civil conversations about politics can be difficult. One high school in the nation's capital is looking to try to change that, teaching students not just about politics, but honestly, how to engage in respectful debate on the most complex issues of these times. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale visited the school and joins us now with their story. Ali, this is an interesting one. Good morning.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. I thought so, too, because constructive, nuanced, and civil are not typically the words we use to describe this current political climate. But I visited this school right here in Washington, D.C. that's training the next generation on how they can change the conversation.
You may think you've heard this conversation before.
How would you describe politics right now?
I would say that politics are sort of a mess.
Either you're one side, like you support one side, or you're the enemy. Demolition derby.
But the students here at the School for Ethics and Global Leadership are doing it differently.
How would you then describe the political environment here?
It is relieving and it's inspiring, honestly.
Being here, I've gotten to hear a lot of different perspectives.
We come from a place in the school of mutual vulnerability.
The school, just blocks from the White House and Capitol Hill, brings together high schoolers from all over the country.
The facts still are very important and can be a powerful tool to use.
And directly engages with the most complex issues of the day, from the Israel-Gaza war to abortion rights.
I wanted to note how often you referred to each other's points.
It's the brainchild of teacher Noah Bopp.
The central insight of founding the school is that in a post-9/11 world, we need American leaders who are ethically strong and internationally aware.
Awareness drawn from across the political spectrum, with guest speakers like Tucker Carlson and former President Barack Obama.
They've all spoken here.
Yeah, no, that's part of our model. It's at the core of our model. All ideas shared in good faith are welcome here.
It's hard, I think, for people who might watch this piece and say, I yearn for a civil political debate where I can engage with the nuance, and yet the stakes seem so high and the good faith seems like it's gone.
It's because the stakes are high that we do need to show as much grace as we can.
Back in the classroom, a chance to learn firsthand, playing the part of lobbyists across from actual lobbyists, defending assigned positions.
Why are you trying to get rid of the tax breaks?
I don't believe that the tax credits are the best use of government federal funding.
I have the research right here, and I also have a graph. You can see the...
All right, that's good. Never mind.
You may also notice no distractions.
It strikes me that here you guys don't have your phones.
So I think not having my phone has kind of led me to have a lot more of a healthy relationship with politics.
We stay up till early hours in the morning, even if we shouldn't be talking about issues that do exist in our society.
I can tell you, they've got their phones in Congress and they certainly have social media, but how could they do a little bit more of what you're doing?
Talk to someone genuinely. If you're in Congress, go to another Congress member and talk to them about their opinions. Come from a place of willingness and openness instead of a place from combativeness.
They make it sound so simple. Maybe it actually is, but you saw there, these kids don't have their phones, which means they have limited access to social media during their year or so in this program. So it spurs more face-to-face conversations late into the night, as the two roommates, Max and Nathan, joked there. But it also means less exposure to this often hyper-partisan or toxic political culture online. If you're not gleaning your political knowledge from rage posts or clickbait headlines, there's a greater chance of engaging in the nuance in the issues, of finding commonality. And they told me that's a really key piece to this equation. Sam?
It's such an important point, right? Like, Allie, it's reason number 9,000 why. It's the external factors, technology, and specifically your phones that drive some of these divisions. To be able to just disconnect from that for a second, so impressive from that school. And thank you for taking us inside.
Yeah, they were really great.
Appreciate you, Allie. Moving now to some financial headlines. Speaking of teens and technology, TikTok is now helping teens wind down at night. CNBC's Silvana Henao joining us with that and other money news this morning. Hi, Silvana.
Hey, Sam, good morning to you. Yes, so TikTok will now interrupt teens with guided meditation exercises after 10 p.m. So the platform has been testing the feature with a wind down prompt, but now it will show the notification with meditation by default to all users under 18. Now, the prompt initially only played calming music to remind teens, to take a break at night. The meditation will also be available to adults who toggle on sleep hours from their settings. Alphabet says its Google One subscription service has topped 150 million paid users. That's a 50% increase since February of last year. Google One charges consumers for cloud storage and AI features. It also introduced a $19.99 a month plan last year with access to AI capabilities that are unavailable to free users. And Apple is rolling out the next generation of CarPlay. The update, called CarPlay Ultra, is available with new Aston Martin vehicles bought in the U.S. and Canada, and then for existing models with a supported infotainment system in the coming weeks. CarPlay Ultra lets drivers use on-screen controls, physical button or Siri to manage the radio, air conditioning, or heat. You'll also be able to show information from your phone, such as maps, media, advanced driving systems, and even tire pressure, Sam.
Yeah, the functionality is really cool. I'll remember that the next time I take my Aston Martin out, what I'm able to do. So, very relatable. Silvana, thank you so much.
You got it.
We are ending the hour with a chilling trip down memory lane. And we mean chilling because it's a classic slice of American cinema. This morning, we're marking 50 years of Jaws with the Fin Frenzy over a film that changed the movie industry as we know it. That story coming up next. Stay with us. And welcome back. We're going to be dating ourselves here just a little bit, but this summer marks 50 years since the film Jaws first hit theaters. It spawned a major franchise and really forever changed the film industry and how many of us feel about being at the beach. Our Joe Fryer has a look back at how fans of the film are marking this mid-century milestone.
What lurked beneath the waters around the fictional island of Amity scared away beachgoers. Shark! Yet attracted moviegoers.
You open the beaches on the 4th of July, it's like ringing the dinner bell.
50 years ago, Jaws, the novel-turned film about a great white shark that bullied and bludgeoned a small town, became the first summer blockbuster.
Fire, you son of a...
Made $260 million back then, and for many, remains a yearly tradition now.
Jaws is a little bit like It's a Wonderful Life, but in the summer and with, far more terror.
What is it that makes it so great?
The villain is believable. It's a shark. It does shark things. I think Jaws has 3 or 4 of the most memorable movie shots, certainly that spring to mind when I think of movies.
That is a deliberate mutilation.
In the movie, Amity Island was run by a punchline of a mayor with a nothing to see here attitude.
But as you see, it's a beautiful day, the beaches are open, and people are having a wonderful time.
In real life, the movie was filmed on Martha's Vineyard, which is proudly feasting on the upcoming anniversary with so many events. Well, to quote Chief Brody,
"You're gonna need a bigger boat."
At one Texas lake, they're planning a movie screening using a floating screen with fans braving the water on inner tubes. To celebrate the Big 5-0, the Boston Pops just played John Williams' score in sync with the film. It's a theme Steven Spielberg initially thought was a joke.
And at first, I began to laugh. I thought he had a great sense of humor. He was putting me on.
As for the shark, it was mechanical and prone to breaking down, so the only thing it actually killed was time. That behind-the-scenes drama even inspired a Broadway play titled The Shark is Broken, now brought back for the Northeast. Jaws merch is also in demand, including this popcorn bucket from Alamo Drafthouse, which is sold out. One group's even holding a contest looking for the ultimate Jaws fin attic. Proof that after half a century, the film still has bites.
and the world will never be the same. Joe Fryer, thank you for that report. Now the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.